All right, folks, and we're back with another episode of Farmer Talk. So, on to this week's episode, we're going to talk about restrictions in agriculture and how those have changed over the course of, my father's career of, 60 years of farming, 60 plus years.
We didn't have any restrictions back then.
Well, that's kind of why we were going to discuss this. You got a pretty
I
wide.
don't know when the first restrictions we really started. Well, there were some back here.
I bet you're not even thinking about what some of them were.
Well, I know we used to have government program, all that. You had restrictions in there, some.
I mean, I'm talking like chemical restrictions, fertilizer restrictions.
No, I don't know when they started. We had to get a chemical license. I don't know if that was in the late 70s. We had to get a license, but before that, we never had, we never used chemical back then. When I was a kid, I don't know his dad.
That's just
Cultivation.
the internet.
Yeah, cultivation. We cultivated everything for the weed. He used 2,4-D because, so 2,4-D's been around forever. But I remember using 2,4-D before. But as far as restrictions, there wasn't any back then on that. Probably in the, I don't know, early 70s, we started using chemical. A lot of it, more so. But I don't remember when we did take the first chemical test.
Yeah, but I mean, before that even, smog pumps started becoming on cars in the late 60s. I mean, do you remember anything like that in agriculture equipment at all?
No, there wasn't nothing that I can remember on tractors. No.
What about Freon? Wasn't it restricted?
We never had air conditioner back in on a tractor. What's wrong with you? I guess you were around.
They had air conditioning in cars in the 60s. So.
Yeah,
I can remember when they got air conditioning in Grandma and Grandpa's house. So
the first big air conditioning when it really started was when John Deere and International too, I suppose, come out with the 4430s, 42s in 71, I believe it was 72. Then they had air on them then, and man, that was.
Was the old timers talking about you kids are just spoiled?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, like you are today. Yeah. But as far as that's,
and I'm okay with that.
and I don't know if there wasn't. I don't think you had to have a license to get Freon back then.
One thing that's kind of funny. Farming today is more, I guess, farmer friendly or more user friendly than it's ever been, and there's less farmers more every day. I mean, talking about like the old timers, about how spoiled we are. There was more farmers back when everyone had to use a horse and a plow than there are today by a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Has the cost to play the game going up that much over that amount of time that it's just run people out?
Well, probably, but also there wouldn't have been food if everyone had to. If one guy was trying to farm that many acres by himself, like there is today. When do you remember? I mean, now you're supposed to have fuel tanks diked. I mean, that's not always the case in some places.
Yeah, I don't know when that was. We always had above ground tanks, and I can remember gravity feed. Then we put in ground tanks, and probably in the 70s, late 70s.
So at my old house, there was 2 fuel tanks there.
That's one.
Was that the farm fuel tanks?
Yeah, but they didn't go into like the 70s probably.
So before that, they were.
We only had one. We didn't have diesel. Then when in '68 bought diesel, then we had to get a diesel tank. Then that might be when we put him.
There was 2 tanks there my whole life.
Yeah.
Or 2 pumps.
I remember a picture. There was a yellow pump there instead of the one that's there now.
Yeah, I remember you guys replaced one probably in the early
'80s. Yeah.
But at that time, you still had. There was no restrictions on burying fuel tanks or anything like that.
No, back then, no, there weren't any restrictions.
Okay.
That I remember.
Can you think of any big incidents around here that happened?
Fuel leaks, things like that.
Those restrictions are in place because there's a story somewhere. Something happened somewhere.
Well, I'm sure there is, but no, I can't remember.
You just can't.
It was probably just as dangerous as overhead tanks. They was on a tripod like, or a 300-gallon tank probably, and if that thing fell over, you'd have a disaster, but or shoot a hole in it or something. But no, in the ground, you didn't know it for a long time. Until you got water in it, kind of, I guess. Then they started. We put a fuel tank in the ground. I don't know when that was. Probably '80s. maybe late 70s, and then whenever it come out in 80s, whatever it was, we had to dig it up. Everybody dug their tanks up. Then they kind of laxed off again, and it seems like it goes in spurts.
Yeah, you think that follows political?
Yeah, probably.
Who's in the White House?
You know, I heard the other day they talked about maybe no more stuff on, equipment or DEF and that kind of stuff.
Emissions regulations.
I'd heard talk that they were kind of backing that.
Backing that down. So I don't know if it's because of Trump or what, but it'd be fine with me if we had to use that government juice.
So for the listeners that are maybe new to the channel, that is called DEF, or government juice, because the government makes us put that product into our engines, so it's government juice in our opinion.
Yep.
I'll show off my hairline.
Yes, I would. Hopefully the autofocus didn't just mess up.
Camera shut off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, then we had to, Freon, you had to get her license later on, but that wasn't until probably 90s.
Well, when did chemical license start becoming that? Because it's kind of crazy
Yeah,
to think that
I'm trying to think, maybe 80s.
I mean, at one point, anybody and their brother could go into any store, hardware store probably in town, and buy. I mean, people think Roundup's dangerous, but it ain't anything compared.
Gasoline is more dangerous than it.
You say that, we don't know that.
Well,
when Brian's talking about Roundup not being dangerous, he's talking about compared to some of the stuff you guys probably had access to with no restriction in the 60s and 70s.
The old Sutazine, God, that stunk. Oh, it's terrible.
Well, even some of the brush killers, I mean.
Well, yeah, the 2,4,5-T was brush killer. Agent Orange. No, I'm sorry, I don't know. It's the same thing pretty well.
Is that pretty close to like DDT? Or?
Yeah. But, it affects everybody different. I mean, some people can get cancer from it right away, and other people can drink it, take a bath in it, don't affect them. Everybody's affected different ways.
I would like to point out that we are not medical professionals, and anything stated on this is our opinion.
It's kind of like a bottle of whiskey, right? It affects people differently.
Yeah.
Some people just pass out, and some people go on a ranger.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
Well, I mean, the fact that you could buy Agent Orange at one time, I mean, I don't like government restriction. I mean, I'm fairly, I want the government to stay out of my life for the most part, but I feel like there are times where maybe there are good reasons for some policies that are in place. And that would probably be one of them. I mean, the fact that you could just go and buy something like that. I mean, obviously people didn't know how dangerous it was, but even today we still see the effects of Agent Orange on our Vietnam veterans time and time. I mean, I think they were able to correlate George's heart condition to Agent Orange, or there was possibilities of that. So, I mean, I kind of get why that restriction's in place. I kind of wonder if the fertilizer restriction happened after the Oklahoma City bombing. Because that was a fertilizer bomb, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably so. Probably had something to do with it. Yeah.
Drove a van full of potash and other accelerants.
That and the fertilizer to up the lakes, all the algae and stuff. They claim false.
Yeah, but I'm saying like in that bombing, if there wasn't a restriction in place before that,
but
probably. I mean, and the fertilized test is extremely easy. It's just a class. It's not a hard restriction to get.
But as I understand it, we don't have to have that to buy fertilizer.
That's true.
We just are supposed to have it to apply it.
Yeah.
So the pesticide restrictions, some of the controlled pesticides, you have to have a license and able to purchase.
Yeah.
Right. Supposed to know what the school you on, so you know what to do, but yet.
Well, there's still a lot of over-the-counter pesticides.
Yes, there's a lot of over-the-counter, and you don't have to have a license. People go buy it.
I mean, like glyphosate is over-the-counter, 2,4-D is.
You could go to Rural King right now and buy 300 gallons of glyphosate.
Yeah,
it's a little bit watered down compared to what we use.
It's not restricted.
Yes,
it's not restricted use. Restricted use, you had to have a license.
Yeah,
to use it and stuff. But I don't know what other kind of regulations they got on us. A little bit of everything. Like the government juice and all the equipment.
Well, when do you remember the first talk of pollution from engines?
Oh, I don't know. It seemed like the first thing.
In the 90s, tractors still blew black smoke. That's kind of how I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they did. I mean, there was. It was just raw engine power. I mean, that 8400 has absolutely nothing restricting it.
Real power.
Yeah, I like taking off down the road, smoking. Like, toot, toot, toot.
Yeah, and it's all
heathen,
gone. No
heathen.
time. It's gone. It's no gone.
Yeah.
No time. So
30 seconds. You don't even know you're there.
yeah, but
I mean, EGRs are the first things that I remember being
yeah,
on tractors.
yeah. Well, the cars had a smog pump. They called it a smog pump on
But
it.
that was decades before the tractors.
Oh, that was
In the 60s and 70s.
nah. My Nova didn't have it on it.
Yeah.
I think my
70s?
mid 70. Yeah, that 70 might have had it on it. Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah, do take the belt off of it.
So see, I bet your pickups had it.
Yeah, yeah.
So see, there's some EPA restrictions.
There's some, yeah, and more and more. And they talked about when they started making soybeans, made oil out of soy oil, they called it, and fuel, and it was clean burning than diesel fuel. But I always said, why don't they use it stuff, putting this DEF on and stuff? But well, I know why they don't use it. So the oil companies ain't gonna make any money off of it. And it's all boils down, if they don't make money off it, they ain't gonna do it. If they can see where they can make some money, there's restrictions.
I know
My feeling on it.
Grandpa always used to tell me a story about some guy in the 50s that developed a carburetor that would get like 50 or 60 miles to the gallon, and he wound up dead very shortly after.
Yeah, and today you hear that stuff today, and this and that. Just like medicine, same thing. Painkillers now. All I see on Facebook now is painkillers. I'd like to try them, but my God, you listen to that, you have to listen to that. I don't know what it is.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of
You can't
hard to
believe.
trust. We're kind of getting off in the weeds, but that's okay. After the pandemic, it's kind of hard to trust any of that stuff anymore. I mean,
Social media, you can't believe it. Yeah.
anything. I mean, the federal government sit here and told us that this shot was the end-all, be-all, and everything will be fine after we take it, and that was obviously not the case. And there was no ill health effects. Well, I think that's all been proven wrong.
Yeah, there ain't no way you can.
Things like ivermectin were bad ideas. Well, I think that's also been proven wrong. But it's just hard. Who do you believe in? Sometimes I think maybe it all does come down to dollars and cents.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Guy told me the other day he takes ivermectin every day and he feels like he's 30 years old and he's 65.
Who was it? Well, never mind. Never mind.
Does he neigh?
Yeah, no.
Does he count by stomping his foot?
See, that was one of the misconceptions of ivermectin was it was a horse medicine, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Wormer. I've always said if instead of going to the doctor, take me to veterinary. Veterinary's got to look at the dog and figure out what's wrong. The doctor, first thing he does is, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
But
yeah, but it kind of worries me. They're all practicing medicine.
oh yeah,
They ain't got it figured out.
yeah. But the restrictions are just so daggone many of them anymore. You guys have CDL, drive truck. I mean, ag, we're exempt, but we can't go out of state or 150 miles.
And that's a state-by-state thing. I know in Iowa, I think they have to have a farm CDL or something. There's some test they have to take out there, I think.
And a lot of truck drivers on the road today don't have CDLs. And a lot of truck drivers on the road today can't speak English. There's
a lot of truck drivers that have a CDL. I mean, they're not driving for a big company with that one. Now, the validity of that CDL, I don't know. I know people that have failed a CDL test that can drive a semi just fine. And I know people that have a CDL that cannot drive a semi at all. One example of that, and this is not someone that doesn't speak English, a lot of our friends are linemen for power companies. And when I was coming out of school and my friends were going through lineman school, there was no Class A with a restriction on automatic and standard transmission. And a bunch of my buddies have Class A unrestricted CDLs, and they've never drove a truck with a
Can't shift.
They wouldn't have a first clue.
Also, probably couldn't pull a trailer.
Yeah, there was no. They got that endorsement because they were pulling a pole.
Oh, okay.
I think
pulling a pole and pulling a trailer.
But I think now that would be a Class A or maybe even a Class B with an automatic restriction. It's just another example of people with a test that they've taken that really aren't qualified for the job that they could do with that license, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a licensed refrigerant. I can recharge our ACs in the tractor.
When did you do that?
A couple years
Or
ago.
so?
Yeah.
No, just last year,
Last
actually.
year,
Last year. Because we needed Freon to put in not 231, whatever the shit is. But
134.
134, yes.
Now it's different, I think.
But I'm not going to fix your house air conditioner.
I wouldn't want you to.
I don't want to touch your truck. You know what I mean?
It's kind of strange. The other day I had a refrigerator go bad, and me and Dax were shooting holes in it, and this big white plume of something came out of it. I don't know what that was.
Fairy dust.
Oh, okay. Anyways,
Well, boy, they'll be on you now.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything.
Well,
I said big white plume of dust. Could have been a box of flour.
You
Well,
also
down
you
there-
also have the door off the hinges, right?
could have been a rock or something. I've been down there where I've been bulldozing. Hits that rock, the blade hits it,
Yeah.
and the dust just rolls off of it. I thought daggone sprung a leak in the radiator or something the other day.
Yeah.
And old Daisy May, my dozer, it don't have any. I don't think it's got anything on it because it puts out smoke.
Yeah, I think it's an all mechanical C15 basically. I think that would be a
It's a 92
3406.
model, I think.
3406C, I believe.
But then the funny thing,
Or B.
I don't think overseas, a lot of it, you don't have any restrictions.
I know with the EPA stuff, that is the case. I've talked to several people in the equipment manufacturing companies, and it is interesting. You tour some of these plants, and you'll see a tractor that'll have a USA stamp, a European stamp, a China stamp. They all have different emissions, and then a lot of the ones outside the United States have zero. I remember talking to someone in the Gleaner plant one time, and there was a Gleaner sitting there. It was a different color. I assume that was how they made sure it stayed on the boat. But it was completely unrestricted. It had nothing on it. And I think it was
I don't think that's right because why should we pay for keeping the air clean and they don't? So, I mean, we're just.
Well, the flip side of that would be if you started making those companies shipping stuff to other countries, put that on there, our cost would go up. I mean, they're probably making more money on that product because they have less stuff on it.
I mean, what kind of pisses me off is how many combines and 300-horse tractors are there on the planet running around at any given time? How many cars and trucks are running around at any given time on the planet?
Locomotives.
Billion.
You see what I'm getting at? I mean,
Yeah, I seen a train go by yesterday down there. My God, the smoke was coming up over the overpass there. You can see the smoke.
Yeah.
So they don't have any restrictions evidently.
Well, my favorite thing is the people that lecture us about cow farts.
Yeah.
And then hop in a private jet to fly to the next seminar to lecture people about cow farts.
Was that Al Gore?
No, I think that was Greta.
Oh, Al Gore's done that too.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. I think, I think a lot of people in that class of people.
But a lot of it's just, even common sense, a lot of the restrictions.
When do you remember people talking about fertilizer restrictions or manure restrictions? Because we're not in production livestock anymore. But
last 10 years maybe.
the people I know that are in it, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, to the
Obama-
point where they're buying or renting acres to spread
When
manure.
Obama was in there and Gore, that was probably the first part of it when he was in there.
Obama and Gore weren't in there together.
Or
and-
Obama,
and
who was
Gore
Gore?
Gore would have
was
been about
Clinton's.
10 years before Obama, right?
No, 8. Gore was
He
Clinton's.
He was Democrat.
Gore was Clinton's
Yeah.
vice
Clinton,
president.
okay. Well, that's about when you heard because he's the one.
I find it odd that I was 10 when he went out of office, and I know that.
Continue.
Well, I ain't no politician.
I'm not either.
Don't care about politics. Well, I do now.
You do when you're talking about
I
this.
do now, but anyway, back then I never much. But what are you gonna do? But anyway, that's probably about the first. I can remember Al Gore. He was a big.
Yeah. He also, I think he invented the internet.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
I think that was. I remember
His
that
big
joke.
claim to fame.
I remember that joke going around for a while. And what about state regulations? Like NRCS, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot.
Well, I think there's not a lot because of where we live, like the environment we live in. But
yeah.
I know I talked to the master pipe layer living in Minnesota, which is basically a gigantic swamp. There's a lot of regulations, like if we're putting in tile. I mean, a lot of regulations.
Yeah.
To the point where people get in a lot of trouble pretty often for not dotting their T's and
Well, there's more
dotting
here.
their I's and crossing their T's.
There's more here than probably in the last 6-7 years because of the septic tanks and all the building
oh,
now.
Jesus, don't get me started on the septic
Yeah,
tanks.
all the building and
I got a good tangent to go on there.
you get now around here if they get 5 acres they can put a leach bed. If they got less than an acre they're 5 acres less. I don't know what they have to do something different.
It's just more restrictions or
More restrictions.
more
and
a
it's
little
just
bit more difficult.
you got to be certified to put septic tank in and leach bed. Well, that's a bunch of bull.
Well,
Them guys, I mean, Gee, me and your grandpa used to put them in years ago all the time, and I know whether they're still working. But the ones they put in like
Them
your
tanks
house,
are still full of it.
yeah, the ones like you got at your house, I bet 10 years you're putting a new one in.
Well, what I didn't understand, the old house that I lived in was old. I mean, it was the place you grew up.
Yep.
That septic tank has been in there probably since the 50s or 60s, whenever they got indoor plumbing.
Pumped once.
But say, you hear of people needing their tanks pumped all the time
Didn't
now.
need it.
And I couldn't even tell you where the lid is for that tank. I know building the house this year, or 2 years ago, I got my little fill of working with that. I mean, that's a county by county regulation, but the Ross County Health Department,
Day by day, and person by person.
is who I had to go through. And I mean, for the people that live in the city, out in the country, most people have a septic system. Basically, you have a tank in the ground that drains, like your poop goes in, the water goes in, sits in that tank, ferments a little bit, kind of, goes out through a leach bed and disperses. And I mean, you're supposed to be fairly clean by the time you get to the end of your leach bed. I wouldn't drink it, but anyways, there's no sewer system out here is what I'm getting at. Whenever we put our leach bed in, or our septic system in, a soil scientist, I had to pay a soil scientist $500 first to come out here and take a soil test. I've taken a few soil tests in my life, and I swear I could have done that for nothing, because it wasn't anything crazy. He just took a soil test.
How deep did he go?
I don't know, but he determined that the max water table in that frickin' lot was the water table in peak season was 3 feet, meaning we should have been able to dig a hole in 3 feet, find water.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You dug a basement at the same site during peak season.
Yes, 10 feet deep.
And how much water did you hit?
Absolutely zero. My house sits between two ravines. I mean, there are ravines. Like, it is a very well-drained location.
On the peak.
Yeah.
Okay, so you paid $500 there. Then how much more you paid?
I can't remember what the permit, which drives me nuts, happened to buy a permit. I can't remember what the permit was. Probably $750, maybe $1,000 for to have the ability to have a septic tank. Oh my goodness, have the right to have it. Anyways, they put the septic tank in, and because that soil scientist who informed me this was some of the best drained soil I'd ever seen, I'm sure he tells everybody that. Because he determined that the water table in peak season was 3 feet, we had to have our septic or our leach bed is only 8 inches below ground. Absolutely ridiculous. Drive a pickup across it and you're crushing. I mean, basically it's drain tile scattered out.
It ain't drain
But
tile.
I mean, that's what you can use. I mean, that's very similar to what it is.
Well,
this is like a half dome product, which basically means
that blows my
no gravel or nothing.
well, you can use less. Some scientist determined it was better. But then we find out that we could have taken that test and became licensed to put it in. The guy that put mine in, I know pretty well, and the whole reason he became an installer is because when he built his house, he didn't want to pay the government to put in his septic tank. Like, well, I wish you'd have told me before you took my money.
Yeah, we'd put it in right. You don't have to worry about it.
Well, you got to do what plan they draw up. Now, the thing that drives me nuts, but then what really pisses me off and grinds my gears, the county has no money into this. I mean, it's not like I'm paying for any service. But that permit's only good for 5 years, and then I got to buy another one.
What?
That is new. That is in the last
They
10
haven't
years.
come to get my
That's
permit
because
money
that
yet.
happened after you.
Okay.
But
If they did, they could dig it up and take it home with them.
Well,
I mean, I don't know what.
Well, in
what you're
5
gonna
years, somebody else will be there, and it would have changed. Because
No.
when BJ put his in,
yeah,
remember that?
That
yeah,
was in 2012.
So when we moved into our house, we bought our permits in like the fall before, I think.
Year and a half or so.
And there was a government regime change in between. And by the time we actually started putting a septic in, they came out and re-inspected the lot. It was a completely different person. And they were not going to approve the septic system because we had an acre and a third or something like that. And we needed to have 7 million feet of leach bed and an aeration system and mounds and 10 different things. And I said, buddy, we were approved to do this. This is what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, just leave. And he left.
Well, you got lucky because now, I mean, they can
Well, they come a year or two later and said, "Where's your risers at?" Remember
Yeah,
that?
we may have hidden the risers under
I
some
put the
dirt.
risers on, which is a hole in the septic tank about
Yeah, it's a plastic lid,
18
basically.
inches. And I told him, I said, they're underground. I know exactly where they're at. They're just barely underground. I know where they're at. Well, you got to put them above. I said, so if I put them above, and my grandson decides he gets out there looking around this young, he gets in one of them things, can I sue you?
I know what they're
Nothing
I
said.
know what they're thinking. Well, those lids are bolted on. Well, that's also thin, fairly thin green plastic that over time is going to get brittle and break. And
There's my first scam call today. I'm going to leave voicemail.
Well, I mean, it's funny you should say that. I know a family whose kid fell in one
Yeah.
and almost went under.
Yeah.
And they happened to find him before he did. That drives me nuts. Just built a brand new house, trying to make my backyard look nice. Can't cover up them risers. They're right beside the house, right beside the back porch. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. I mean, like.
But luckily, I mean, there's a lot of when we built this building, I don't remember we didn't have to have a permit or anything.
So we do live in a fairly free
So
county.
that's good. But now they probably changed it, ain't they?
No,
Something happened?
So we don't have to buy building permits for like the pole barn that me and my wife just built. I mean, to be honest, that went from a yard barn to a pole barn idea in a couple days, and that's because we don't have to have a permit in our county to build a pole barn. But the county commissioners actually tried to put that in place where you did, and the outcry from the general public was pretty loud. And I doubt there'll be a building permit anytime soon if those guys want to hang on to those seats.
So a local politician approached that as those permits or that permitting system is put in place to protect the consumer from basically dishonest contractors and shitty building practices. And there's a lot of that that goes around, and it's a good thought. But at the end of the day, it comes back to money. I mean, it's just another way.
In my opinion,
now you're not getting screwed by your contractor; you're getting screwed by the county.
yeah, to me that should be up to the individual. You should do your due diligence and not rely on the government to save you in that situation. And that's my opinion on it.
Don't rely on 2 Yelp reviews to build a house.
I cannot stand having to ask the government to do something on my own property. That just drives me nuts. When we built that house, so the farm that we're sitting on, Kayla and I own, and we have a mortgage on that farm. Well, to build a house on it, you have to basically pay off your, lot out a separate lot. That way, your house mortgage has a place they can repossess if you default. So we made us a lot and drove me nuts. I had to basically make my lot come all the way to the road, which wouldn't be an issue if I didn't live a mile off the road. And because we were doing that, I mean, it was just more I had to pay off ahead of time, which wasn't a huge deal. But I made it the driveway, basically. So we have a very goofy shaped lot. Well, the lot's only 50 feet wide. I had to go to the county to ask for a variance to have road frontage only 50 feet wide.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're supposed to have 100.
But there's a lot of restrictions, and like, if we build a hog barn or something like that, you got to have a permit, which I can understand some of that. But
Do you think when you were younger and everything was completely restrictionless, though, do you think that's what led to like the Lake Erie algae bloom, or do you think that was?
no.
I mean, not necessarily on farmers. I mean, there was no restrictions on anybody, including like Mead paper, for example. I mean, we have a landfill pretty close to here from Mead because there was no restrictions back then.
I'm going to look up when the EPA was established.
I don't know that up there.
One of our
Lake Erie
favorite
was
places.
just- a lot of it's been proven it's from the cities. All that runoff. The majority of it, I don't think the farmer. They figure 30 or 40% from the farmers, but they don't say anything about it.
I guess what I'm saying is some of the restrictions really drive me nuts, but some of them are probably good. I mean, like when Mead was doing what they were doing, that was pretty not good. I mean, obviously.
Well, other restriction drives me nuts. I don't know if you want to call it a restriction or not. I guess it's a way they can make money, easy money, and help stay in business. I don't know about that, but just like the tractors, all our equipment, you got to have unlocks. That's a restriction. We had
That's
to get.
not a government restriction.
What is it?
That's a company to make
That's
it.
a private party restriction so that they can gain money.
Well, I bet some of it. ain't,
That's a
though.
revenue stream,
Well, that's what. Yeah,
which is
that's
basically what a
restriction.
restriction is. With
That's
the
a
government.
restriction.
EPA was established in 1970, so that's
1970.
about when
That's probably on smog and that.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, like some of the big cities were pretty nasty back then too. I mean, big clouds.
Some of them still pretty nasty, probably.
Yeah.
I'm not a global traveler like you, but I guess like San Francisco, that area was pretty, like the smog.
Yeah.
L.A.
Well, they'll
New
be
York.
raising Cain about because Trump bringing back coal, so that's people start raising Cain about that again.
I guess.
Well, I'm going to get
That's-
our first coal-powered tractor next week.
Well, that's one thing why when we fertilize, we have to use sulfur, put sulfur in because we don't. Used to be coal prevents sulfur, and it was in the air, then it would go in the ground. But now it's not, so we have to use sulfur.
Well, I mean, if it's better, if
Is
it's
it?
better for everybody's health,
Is it?
I'm okay with just putting a little sulfur in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably better for the environment that we just direct inject sulfur as opposed to relying on.
Is it really?
I don't know. That
That's
goes
it.
back to trusting
Yeah,
people.
that's
I
it.
don't know.
You gotta trust.
I'm
yeah.
not a biologist or a health scientist. I guess with some of these restrictions, I feel like if it's for the greater good, but who gets to determine that? You're also relying on someone else. I mean, I know old Fauci thought, and he was telling people he was doing things for the greater good. I don't know if he was or for his good, but
his pocket.
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the restrictions originally were put in place with the intention of making the world a better place. And in the
Were
interest
they, or was-
in the interest of making their pocketbook a better place, then they started easing restrictions in exchange for money and restricting this, that, and the other. It really probably didn't need it, like your building stuff.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if they were put in place for the greater good or if they were put in place for money, and that's how they were built, is for the greater good.
Well, I'd say, it was, like he said, starting out, it was for the great best, but ended up at eight, just like the government, all the spending they're finding, it's somebody's padding their pockets.
Well, I'm thinking like, hey, we're going to outlaw DDT because, hey, that's bad stuff.
Yeah.
And then, hey, you know, that worked for DDT. Maybe we'll make them pay for a license to use atrazine.
They take it too far.
Or maybe we'll make it so that everybody thinks that glyphosate's the devil and
Yeah. I know.
and this lobbyist can get paid.
With those California wildfires, they were talking of like one of the main things they were going to do was lift some of the restrictions so that people could afford to build. I'm like, well, yeah,
We
it'd
never-
probably
Was
help everybody build if you
when
did.
were they saying like 3 years to get a permit
It was
Oh,
that
yeah,
fire hit?
for a frickin' driveway even.
to replace a building that was already there?
Yeah, I mean some of that stuff was pretty carried away in my opinion.
But in town, there's a lot more
and-
restrictions, permits than
Well,
out here.
So I'm going to talk about something we know absolutely nothing about.
An HOA.
No, I mean
Oh, get me started on
California.
them. Oh.
California. I mean, didn't like insurance companies drop policies
Yeah.
basically due to government restrictions saying they couldn't charge what they felt they needed to charge to cover an event like that?
Yeah, I believe that is correct. I mean, again, who do you believe? But my understanding is that is correct. And then I heard people complaining about those insurance companies, but I mean, they've got to try to be able to not go broke.
I mean, yeah, they have to be able to cover their asses in a catastrophic situation like that. And I don't know.
Yeah, kind of seems like when the government gets involved, maybe
Yeah.
Well,
they're from the government. They're here to help.
things bad
Yeah.
now.
Probably still is.
Yeah.
Yep. You ever have any experience with an HOA when you used to live in town or Columbus? No.
No, I lived in an apartment that probably got cleaned out last round or right short after the election.
Yeah. That is one thing that I could not stand. I have a buddy that lives in a neighborhood with a HOA, and he got a letter on his door for having his camper in his driveway. I think I had to wipe my ass with the letter and put it back in that person's mailbox. I mean, like,
I had to park my camper on the curb.
yeah. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know. I'm glad we don't have to worry about stuff like that. But
So I was in the school pickup line over here. This is back in the fall, and some lady was there waiting for her child, and they had moved here from someplace else because the HOA had run them out, basically because they had the wrong color front door. Like when they just bought the house, moved in, painted, put new shutters on, new siding, painted the door the wrong color.
how does someone have the authority to do that? I mean, like, if you don't pay your HOA fine, what's going to happen?
Right?
I mean, it's just a dude that lives in a house down the street. Like, what's going to happen? I don't understand that. Like, I would have a hard time with that.
I like watching videos of guys on social media that they moved into a neighborhood and like
Their sole purpose is to piss off the HOA.
yes, I watched one guy. I forget what he did, but they didn't like it, so they told him to put a fence around.
His trash cans.
Yes, his trash cans. So he put a fence up, and he put a fence around his air conditioning unit.
The later episode was he painted a trash can on his fence.
Yes, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I would not handle
That's
that.
pretty. I don't have the wit to deal with those people.
I would probably, if we actually had to live there and there was a way to enforce things.
So
I'd
is the
probably-
HOA president the equivalent of the nosy neighbor from like the 50s and 60s that was looking over the fence all the time? And
Sounds like it.
Well, I don't know. You gotta tell everybody why we're not in the field. We had 7/10 of an inch of rain last night. Yesterday.
in about an hour and a half.
Yes. It's just dry enough to get in the field.
So
So
for
I-
you guys that don't hear Dad every day, he's been complaining about a drought since last, I don't know, May.
Since 1980.
But now we're
Something.
complaining about moisture.
Well, I ain't complaining about it, but we should ease up a little bit. Now we're getting some rain, and the other places aren't. But I'd heard back in March it's going to be 3 months of this, hard to get the crop out, then it's going to turn dry. So
Which would be worst case scenario.
yes, maybe we can bottle it up some way. But
So if you're new to the channel and you don't farm, there's always too much rain and never enough rain, and it's the same thing with money.
Yeah.
Well, there's never too much, but
There is a tax time.
yes.
Yeah. There's a few cases in point here.
Like $20 is too much.
Yeah.
so you know it's bad when they cancel Little League baseball and all the baseball games. You know it's bad. So they didn't have a ball game last night.
It is Little League season. Opening day was last Saturday, Saturday. BJ and I's boys are both playing, and then my two daughters are playing softball. So always something every night.
Yeah, that's why I didn't have a podcast Sunday night. Then BJ went to the big boys game. Tell
Yep.
about that.
Took so my granddaughter turned 1, and my son, her dad turned 26 within about 10 days of each other. And do I need to get closer?
It's just kind of hard to hear sometimes.
And so we all went to see the Reds play, and we were walking in, and there's a little booth where you can get a certificate for going to your first game. Well, they found out it was her birthday, so she got a certificate for being at her first game, and another one saying happy birthday. And while we were standing there, this girl comes over and grabs my daughter-in-law, and she says, "Hey, we would like to be we would like your baby. We'd like to film your baby to be on the jumbotron in like the 3rd inning."
You told me it wasn't called a jumbotron.
The big, whatever it is, the freaking
Big
scoreboard, the big scoreboard. And she said she's going to be the Chick-fil-A nugget of the game. So she got a little stuffed Chick-fil-A cow that says "Eat more chicken," I think, or
Yeah,
eat more
that.
cow, or I don't eat more beef. I don't whatever it says. I guess the cow would say "eat more chicken," wouldn't it? So they were all on the jumbotron or the big screen, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
Did they give you a Chick-fil-A gift card?
Trey and McKenna got loaded down with Chick-fil-A cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did get some swag.
So they'll have to go to Columbus to eat Chick-fil-A.
Lancaster?
Lancaster.
I think there's one in Lancaster. I don't know.
Supposed to be one coming here, I thought.
I think you could probably redeem those at Cane's, can you?
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, we got hillbilly Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
We got Raising
Yeah,
Cane's.
so that was pretty neat.
Yeah, it was.
Did the Reds win?
They did. We stayed for the whole thing. This is embarrassing to say. That might be the first time as an adult that I've been to any kind of professional sporting event and not had a beverage besides the Coca-Cola.
Well, it's more expensive, the Coke or the beer?
I spent like $10 on a Coke, a hot dog, and a bag of chips. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. So for those of you not familiar,
The beer was like $8 or something, I think.
that's
It's pretty
cheap.
cheap. Pretty cheap.
Cheap for beer?
Yeah.
14
God, I
to
wouldn't be
$20.
drinking none then.
Yeah.
So for those not familiar with Southern Ohio sports, the Reds and the Bengals, they're usually a disappointment. I mean, usually a lot of promise.
In your lifetime. Yeah.
I mean, I'm 34. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a
in
while.
your lifetime.
Yeah.
The year you were born was the last time the Reds won the series.
Yeah, well, 34 years ago. It's been a while.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think it's ridiculous that they've got it's that expensive to eat and hang out at a Reds game and have a good time. Was there 10% attendance, you think?
Oh, yeah, it was.
Oh, was it pretty?
Yeah, it was not.
Well, I think everything's down. Boy,
It just, it seemed like there were sections of the stadium where there was a lot of people, and then there was empty spots. And it was part of it might have been weather forecast because it was supposed to be chilly, supposed to be kind of drizzly, but it turned out to be a beautiful day. The sun was shining. It was probably 65, maybe.
You think 10% though? Probably.
Yeah,
15%.
probably. There was probably 20,000 people there
Huh.
in a stadium that seats, I don't know,
So is it seats
close
around-
to 50, maybe.
Everything
Well, then that
like
ain't
that.
10% attendance.
Oh, sorry.
That'd be 40% attendance.
Well, then it did pretty good. Didn't
There
it?
was almost as many people was at the Bristol Speedway. The Bristol race was this weekend. There wasn't
anybody
nobody there. It was terrible.
Really?
Hasn't
Hard to-
NASCAR been suffering there
Oh,
for a while?
NASCAR's
It
hurt.
used to be Bristol though was almost
Oh,
immune to that.
you couldn't get a ticket. Well, it wasn't half full, third full.
Well, the only time I've ever been to Bristol was before they added on all this.
Yeah.
They were in the process of
when
starting
we was
it.
there in
Yeah.
the front row, third
Yeah.
row seats, great seats.
Yeah,
Remember
couldn't
that?
see over the
Jeez.
wall. You could just barely
hear-
see the top.
We had headphones where we couldn't hear after it was over with. We were ringing wet with beer
Yep,
because everybody
yep.
threw their beer cans down the front.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, the good old days.
yeah,
do
that's
you
first
know-
race.
You know why both these sports are struggling to fill seats?
Beer costs too much.
Restrictions.
Restriction. That's right. That's right.
See how
On pesticide.
See how I
Yes.
tied that back in?
Yeah, that's good, Brian. Yeah, there are restrictions, more restrictions on it. Yeah.
Well, there probably are. I'm sure there are a lot of
Oh, no
restrictions.
doubt about it. Yeah. But, yeah, well,
Well, if you guys have any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, or if you would like to be on the podcast, please send us an email, and we're going to attempt to try to broaden this out to phone interviews because, well, we live in the middle of nowhere, or nowhere near very many people in ag. So if you'd like to have a chance to be on, send us an email, and we'll see you guys next week.